Welcome back. As I said before the break, next we're going to talk particularly to Mike about what he called Thame Remembers. Last year was the centenary of the First World War, and many towns and cities up and down the country have been putting on very innovative and imaginative schemes to try and commemorate the event, and Thame certainly has, with its own Thame Remembers, and one of the leading lights in that particular campaign is Mike. So Mike, tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, certainly. It's really, it was a bit of a mad idea that has turned into probably one of the most ambitious commemoration projects in the country, in that in Thame, on different memorials in Thame, we have around 200 names from conflicts over the last 120 years, principally the First World War. And like most communities, we're researching into their backgrounds, but we've got one step further. We have challenged the people of Thame to deliver a special Thame cross to every grave, wherever it is in the world. Now we're talking 200 men, 23 countries, even 12 shipwrecks.
Wow. So how far have you got with that?
Well, it's a 4.25-year project, obviously, because we're going from the anniversary of the outbreak of war in August 1914 through to Armistice Day 2018. And in the first 9 months, we've covered just over 60 of the crosses. Wow. In locations as diverse as New Zealand, Tanzania, India, Singapore, Malta, as well as obviously a sprinkling in this country and quite a few in France and Belgium.
That's wonderful. Amy, what's your thought of that? Isn't it astonishing?
Yes, yeah, and I'm sad that I hadn't heard about it before. How are you recruiting your people to go off and fulfil the mission, as it were?
Thame is the sort of community where the word gets around very quickly.
That's true.
We have exhibited at Thame Show and at Thame Food Festival. We've had stands there that people have got to know about it. We have distributed leaflets. We have, and we'll probably go into this a bit more in a little while, but we have spoken to classes at school. We have a website out there, Thame Remembers. Just Google it. You don't need the website address. It'll come on top hit. And we produced a 5-minute promotional video which goes with part of that. But all the information is on the website, so the full list of casualties, where they are, newsletters on the project, delivery reports for the crosses that have already gone out, and a little bit about each of the soldiers in each of those delivery reports. But people are approaching us. And this is good. The word is out there. People are going away on holiday or on business and saying, can we deliver a cross?
And you suggested there was an educational element to it, but how does that come about?
Well, we've worked extremely closely with Lord Williams's School in Thame, which is the largest secondary school in Oxfordshire anyway. And we have given a 40-minute presentation to every year group assembly, so that's 1,700 students know about the project, many of whom we hope will have gone home and talked to their parents about it as well. But further links with the school, the cross in New Zealand was delivered by a lad who 10 years ago was head boy of Lord Williams's. There's a cross locally in Watlington, but a lad from Watlington who was a student at Lord Williams 100 years ago, the cross to his grave was delivered by the head teacher, the head boy and the head girl.
Wow.
We then had 3 old Tabensians, old boys of the school, who went off to the Somme a fortnight ago and took 3 crosses with them. And there is a school trip going out to Normandy in June, Year 9 pupils, so 14-year-olds, and they'll be doing 2 crosses while they're there. So the links with the school have been fantastic, and obviously it's a two-way benefit.
Indeed. You mentioned to me earlier that there was a battlefield tour. Is that the one you were just referring to?
Yeah, we have a busload, 40 people from Thame. We'll be going out at the end of October to the Somme and Ypres. We'll be staying in just outside Lille. We have 2 expert guides, one in the Somme, one in the Ypres. It won't be purely about delivering crosses. We will incidentally do a few crosses while we're there, but that is more about the experience. See the battlefield, see the trenches, get to know the landscape. And I went out there about a month ago, a small group of 8 of us, and I was absolutely stunned. It was awe-inspiring. Obviously very, very serious, obviously tragic, but to actually be there and to stand on the spot and to imagine the action taking place and then to visit the cemeteries.
Very moving, I would imagine.
Extremely, extremely so.
And how did you get involved in this in the beginning?
It was a mad idea. It was a very good friend, a fellow councillor who came back from a trip over there, and we were having a beer in the pub one night, and he said, I've got a crazy idea. I said, tell me about it. He did. I said, Dave, we're going to make it happen. And we've worked very closely together. Obviously, more people have come on board to help. but it's really taken off and it's caught the imagination of the community.
It's brilliant. Thanks for that, Mike. Well, moving on, there was an article in the press recently about some research done into the relationship between obesity and noise, and having a GP with us, it seems perhaps something worth just throwing into the conversation. Have you read these surveys? Has it reached the medical profession?
It has. In fact, it was in the BMJ, the British Medical Journal,
Yes.
and when I first heard the story, just the headline, I thought, oh, well, this is going to turn out to be something really obvious, like the fact that actually if you live in a noisier environment, you're probably not getting out and exercising so much because it's quite urban, and that's what's going on here. But actually the study was quite clever. It took 5,000 Swedish people, so you might argue they may be different from British people, but there's probably a lot of things that our physiology and our bodies have in common, and looked at their rates of obesity in terms of different levels of noise, so aircraft noise, road noise, railway noise. And the key thing was that, particularly when you combined all those three noises together, that people seemed to get larger around the middle. They didn't get heavier, so their BMI, which you use to calculate whether you have an inappropriate level of weight for your height, that was okay, but their waist size did seem to go up if they were exposed to more noise.
And there was a second survey which talked about the relationship between noise and strokes in older people. Is that something you've read too?
I've not read that particular paper, but I know there's been a number of studies and that they've been very controversial, as you can imagine, about things like Heathrow expansion and things like that. The working theory is that the steroid that your body makes in response to stress, and that can be noise stress, and they think therefore particularly the aeroplanes, as that's kind of big whooshes of noise, actually changes the way your body handles calories, and it lays down more fat around your middle.
So move to the countryside, and you may not be quite so overweight as you might have been.
Indeed, perhaps an advert for Oxfordshire, but maybe not so much for London.
Mike, do you live somewhere nice and quiet? Is it? You're certainly not obese, so I presume you do.
I live right in the centre of Tame, but yes, I'm a fairly quiet little part of it. I tend to distrust these things in that there's constantly excuses being made for obesity, and I know that a lot of people will have genuine reasons or medical problems that make them obese. Others, it is a case of excusing, finding, a way to carry on being what they are rather than to change the way that they live. And there's not necessarily a cause and effect correlation. You can have two bits of statistics which coincidentally happen to match, but if you can't prove cause and effect, then you have nothing at all.
You're right, and the researchers of the Swedish study pointed out that it was a cross-section, so a kind of snapshot in time, and that actually linking the two is much more complicated.
So there's no science behind it. There's observations have been made. There's no explanations to back them up.
I suppose working on it, as with most research, you just chip away at a question, and they've taken a lot of care to try and rule out the obvious things that could confuse the matter, but it just, like with most science, it answers half a question and asks about another 10. So you're right. The heartbreaking thing is that, boringly, if you move more and eat less, it makes the biggest difference to obesity, and it's kind of what we're all needing to work on. And probably just getting rid of noise in your life isn't going to be the thing that makes a difference.
Sure.
Well, just moving to something a little lighter, perhaps. There was a survey carried out to find out. It was carried out by the Elizabeth Shaw Chocolates, and they asked people, 1,000 people, what their favourite moments in their lives were. Now, the top 3 were getting married, passing the driving test, seeing my children being born, or perhaps fairly understandable. One of the ones that surprised me was that getting married was number 1, getting divorced was number 46. But nevertheless, what about each of you? Do you have a favourite moment? If someone had asked you that question, what would have been your favourite moment?
You've got to string out all the usual ones, your kids being born, first steps, first words, that sort of thing. But I think if I focus on myself rather than family or the rest of it, it would have to be the first time I jumped out of an aeroplane.
Oh.
Wow. When
the
did that
first of
happen?
Oh, a long time ago, 40 years ago. But it was just something, an incredible experience, and something that I guess people probably do more these days, because you can go off and get the training and do a jump in tandem and all that sort of thing. But then it was literally half a day's training, no tandem jump, put a chute on your back, kick you out.
Yeah.
Perhaps the surprising thing was that I did a second one. The first one, you're committed. It's bravado, isn't it? You've got to do it. Why did I go back up?
Well, I've seen the whole list, and that was not one of the 50. So
No, I'm sure it wasn't.
That's rather good. What about yours, Amy?
Well, I must admit that I probably fall into the cliched group of the wedding being pretty phenomenal, but it wasn't the cliched moment of walking down the aisle or putting on the dress or the now you may kiss a bride. It was the end of the evening when we were all sweaty and disgusting on the dance floor, and I was wearing an absolute meringue of a dress, and I discovered that despite this, I considered that I was able to dance with reasonable energy and was leaping around and singing along to the songs, and knew that this was just the beginning of the fun, and that the gentleman I'd married was as sweaty and as silly as I was, and that was exactly what I was looking for. So probably that one.
Well, the survey showed lots of more modern, the traditional ones that certainly you're describing. That's fairly understandable, but the young don't look at it quite like that. Some of them, for example, number 36 was getting your first mobile. A memorable moment. A selfie with a celebrity was number 42. 48 was making a YouTube video. Do any of those sort of more modern things, do you feel any of those might be something you'd remember?
Well, technically, apparently, I'm one of this generation that are the last ones to go through all of secondary school without having social media. So I'm with you guys on this one, I think, feeling a bit that it's a whole new world.
I'll give you a fairly profound one, actually, in that a memorable moment in my life, and I think in every youngster's life, is the first time my father asked my advice on something.
Yeah, that's a very good one. Well, thanks for that. I think it's time to go to another break. So after the break, we'll be asking Mike a bit more about what it is that makes a town councillor and why on earth does he do it. And before then, if you'd like to get in touch with us, please do. Remember, the email address is talk@that'soxford.com, or tweet us at that'soxfordtv. So we'll be back in a moment.